On this edition of Startup Central, let's get talking about electric mobility, and we're talking to a startup called Ultraviolet Automotive, and they've roped in an undisclosed amount of money for their Series B round of funding. Let's find out more from them. They're, of course, into smarter, into sustainable transportation solutions, and they've been talking about the F77, this high-performance electric motorcycle, which has been built indigenously from the ground up with aviation principles, and that's why it's really cool to talk about it. At this point in time, we are joined by the co-founders of the company. Let me introduce Narayan Subramaniam, the founder of Ultraviolet Automotive, and Niraj Rajmohan, the founder and CTO of Ultraviolet Automotive. Already in the past, gentlemen, we know about the interest of TVS in your startup, and they've invested money into your company. So I want to understand how the Series B funding has panned out for you, and how much of a kitty are we talking about, and what are the kind of uses you're going to be putting this additional kitty of funds to?
So yeah, hi Vikram, good evening. Nice to be on air with you. Yeah, it's been busy times for us with the whole Series B happening over the past few months. And I think to give you some context, TVS and some of the other investors have been part of the company from the Series A stage itself. And this sort of, talks a lot about validation of the tech on our side and a lot of progress made towards getting the motorcycle out there, the F77 that you mentioned.
And to add to what Narayan's saying, what we've been working on is commercializing the vehicles. The first vehicle will be the F77, which is a high-performance electric motorcycle. And what this investment is going towards is in terms of capital investments necessary to take this to a commercial launch and get it out there in the market. Right? So that's what we've been working on.
I think this would entail some of the efforts towards completion of our testing and tooling and assembly facilities.
Right, so give me an indication of how your funding stands right now, gentlemen, because that's an essential piece. In these COVID times, as much as we look forward to the changes in the way we transport ourselves, there is electric mobility that is there, but it has taken its time to come. And I don't know how much of a disruption COVID has caused. It could be good for the company, it may not be, but you tell us, from conceptualizing to designing, putting out the pre-production model to now getting into production. Tell us about the biggest hurdles you faced and how you stand now on the funding situation to be able to propel growth for the company in the production time that is so crucial.
Okay. Yeah, so a lot of questions. We'll get into it maybe by starting with some of the hurdles that we faced, right? So it's been about 3 years of R&D so far. What we're really proud of is the kind of talent that we have on board. We have some really experienced and smart engineers and designers on board. And I think with a strong combination of consumer electronics, aviation, and of course the automotive approach is what we put together in terms of what goes into the F77 as of today.
And I think in terms of how this year has panned out for us, certainly COVID has affected everyone's timelines, not just us. But what we've seen is that we've made significant progress in terms of testing the vehicles on the roads, in terms of development activities that we have done internally, despite all of the disruption that COVID has caused. And yeah, so we are still on track in terms of getting the vehicles out there, and we are quite excited. The whole world has to deal with COVID, so there's nothing special about it for us in that sense. In terms of the funding specifically, I think we have had some very strong partners, including GoFrugal Technologies and TVS, and we're quite excited about the partnership that we've built with them over the last couple of years. And despite COVID, I think everyone sees the kind of progress that we've been making in terms of the technology, in terms of building very smart, connected, high-performance vehicles. And that is where I think there have been no shortcomings in that sense in terms of the fundings, and we are quite excited about moving ahead.
I think one thing I could add while we're talking about COVID is that, of course, in terms of timelines, there is a certain delay. The whole industry is facing this issue. And one thing that we did, though, was not heavily rely on geographies outside of India. So most of the core tech that goes into the product and the whole platform that in the future is going to span into multiple segments, is completely built out of our R&D facility here in Bangalore. So of course, there is some amount of dependency on companies in different parts of the country, but we have severely minimized dependency specifically towards Southeast Asia.
All right, so when you talk about delays in your timeline, how soon will it be that we see F-77s on the roads in India? How are you going to ramp up the production? And very importantly, a sizable chunk of the money that's coming in, now that the bike is going to be on the roads, hopefully very soon, is how you're going to build your marketing strategy at a time that competition would be biting at your heels. You're going to have the behemoths as well, though you have the backing of TVS. There is a Bajaj Auto, there is the competition that is constantly going to bite at your heels when it comes to electric mobility. How do you think you're going to stay ahead of the curve on that front when it comes to building your USPs and staying on top when it comes to what you've developed as far as the advantage when you move first in a certain business is concerned?
Okay. So first, with the timelines, we are targeting mid-21 for the bikes to roll out. And in terms of our production assembly facility, we are looking at ramping up to close to 10,000 units over the period of 12 months. And all of that is going to be internally managed. And I think with regard to the strategy of getting it out there,
I think in terms of differentiation, in terms of go-to-market, in terms of marketing strategies, I think what we have today and over the next year, you will see it as it as vehicles start to roll out, is that we have a very differentiated product, both in terms of performance, in terms of design, in terms of user experience. And there's really nothing out there that actually compares to what we have built, right? Over the next couple of years, we will see competition, and we are glad to take on competition, and we are quite excited to see more electric vehicles be out there. And we actually look forward to that. But what we're seeing is that there is a tremendous consumer demand. We're seeing it on our website in terms of pre-order interest. We're seeing several thousands of interests being expressed on our website. And what we see is that the interest is not just across India, but across the world, right? And we are quite excited. We don't see that there's going to be any issue in terms of getting the vehicles out to consumers. We see that whatever is the issue, it will be us. There will be limitations in us delivering vehicles because there's going to be such a large following and interest across the country.
So do tell me, what is going to be the strategy when it comes to sales? First, on the pricing front and also the online-offline mix that you're going to go in for. Narayan, what's the sense that you're getting looking at the way the markets are moving and the automotive sector as we're getting into the festive season? The automotive sector has been first off the block, as it were, to recover to pre-COVID levels. That's the big buzz that we are getting. So there is inherent demand. We don't know whether it's just pent-up demand that we're talking about. We don't know whether it's festival demand. But certainly the likes of a Maruti Suzuki, which is of course nowhere in your space, but in passenger vehicles, is seeing that kind of uptake. But even if you look at the two-wheelers, we are seeing a surge in demand over there. So when it comes to electric mobility, which is going to be in a very nascent stage when you bring in the F-77, your strategy when it comes to sales, whether it's on the pricing front or how you're going to sell, from which kind of outlets you're going to sell, online, offline mix, how do you plan to go about it? What's the plan so far?
Sure. So, you touched upon quite a few things, rightly so, that, the automotive industry was the worst hit and first off the blocks. So what we're seeing is there is a definite demand for consumer-owned vehicles moving forward. Also, the fact that we are lucky, or I think we have timed it right to be in the stage where we are sculpting what could potentially be the identity for electric transportation. And one of the few companies in this space globally doing this. And we are, of course, looking at a mix of both online and offline. We will have a staggered strategy when it comes to distribution. Probably a few cities to start with, and a phase-wise approach towards getting it out to the rest of the country. I think all of this is in the works right now. Adding on to what Niraj mentioned in terms of consumer interest coming in, there is a tremendous interest in terms of setting up distribution for or retail outlets for the motorcycles and the brand itself. So a lot of this is being looked into at the moment. But of course, we are trying our best to maximize the reach across the country and not, be very local at the starting point. And
Cost
yeah, I
efficiency
think
is
the
also
more
where it's going to be at, and we wish you great luck on. Yes.
Okay, I was just saying.
No, absolutely. I was just talking about cost efficiency, and that's where you need to kind of control. So I'm just wondering where the biggest cost factors are to come in and how you're going to play that out, considering that these times are tough, because I know based in Bangalore, you have about 50 employees and you're going to try and keep the team lean and mean. But going ahead from here, there will be challenges on that front as well, because the R&D exercise is a constant churn. You need to kind of stay up ahead on that curve as well. So how are you going to do that very quickly, because we're losing out on time?
Sure.
I think in terms of how we see capital investments into R&D and the way that we built the technology, it's meant to be very modular. For us, the F77 is just the beginning, right? There are going to be other vehicles that come out of the ultraviolet portfolio. And a lot of that technology, the foundation has already been built up. So that's the idea behind what we have spent the last 3.5, 4 years on. And in terms of going forward and scaling up into different categories, for us, that would be a very short 8 to 12 month window in terms of getting into other vehicle segments or other vehicle categories. Now, which one, which specific segment, all of those things are up for discussions and up for finalization. But the idea here is that we have already built that capability. In terms of how the company and the team scales, we're looking at a larger team in terms of assembly and production and testing. And that will obviously ramp up over time, but it's something that we've already planned for.
But I think fundamentally the whole R&D team, we want to keep it as lean as possible.
Well, I'm running out of time. I would have loved to continue this conversation, but thanks very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll catch up with you very, very soon as the F77 hits the road, and we hope we don't have to wait too long for that. It looks like a super cool idea, and electric mobility is where it's at. We take a small break and be back in a flash. Don't go away.